My father owns a small delivery service that operates out of Farmington, New Mexico. We mostly deliver small packages out to the middle of nowhere that are too much of a hassle for the larger delivery companies to bother with. My dad is the only employee, and we have a few pickup trucks and a trailer. One day, we get a delivery out to Window Rock, Arizona. Located on the Navajo reservation, about 2 hours from Farmington. My dad gets the call for the job while he is visiting with his Navajo friend named Travis and his girlfriend. Travis mentions how he's got family in Window Rock that he hasn't seen in ages and suggests they go with him. I was about 6 or 7 at the time, and it was the summertime, so Dad decides that we'll go down together. He can do his delivery really quick, then while Travis sees his family, we can go check out the Window Rock. It's a big rock face, with a large hole in it that goes to the other side, which looks pretty cool. We had to convoy in separate trucks, since my dad's was loaded down with freight. We decided to bring along some walkie-talkies, so we could communicate with one another. We spend our time in Window Rock, everything is generally uneventful, and we start heading home along the old highway with my dad and I riding in the front, and Travis and his girlfriend in their truck behind us. I honestly don't remember most of the Window Rock trip, but this next part one can never forget. We're somewhere on the highway between Window Rock and Gallup, New Mexico. It had just rained earlier in the day, and the road was kind of slick, so we were taking it pretty slow. On the left of the highway, there is nothing but sandstone cliffs. On the right, there is a huge field separated from the road by a small barbed wire fence. We crest the top of this hill. At the bottom of the hill, we see what appears to be a very large dog, sitting back on its haunches in the middle of the road, facing the cliffs. My dad calls over the radio. "Hey Travis, do you see that big-ass dog?" Travis starts yelling back over the radio. "That is not a dog. Speed up right now and hit it." He sounds almost hysterical. He just keeps screaming. "Hit it. You have to hit it. Please. Hit that fucking thing right now." My dad starts to speed up, and as we get a bit closer I can begin to see it a little more clearly. It's covered in this brown, wiry, matted hair that appears to have dried blood all over it. It's still facing the cliffs, but the moment our headlights hit it, it turns and looks at us, and it has a face. I don't know how else to describe it, other than a mix between a bear and a human's face. It looks twisted, and distorted, and almost in pain. As we get closer to this thing, we start to realize it's actually huge. Though it was still sitting on its haunches, it is about shoulder height with the hood of the truck. We get literally inches from hitting it, when it lets out this scream that sounds like someone screaming, as their lungs were filling with water. It leaps backwards, towards the field, landing just on our side of the barbed wire fence. Then with another leap, it was gone from sight. Travis comes over the radio again. "Holy shit. Keep driving. We have to get out of here. We have to go faster." He kept repeating that last part. We have to get out of here, and we have to go faster. Pretty soon, we were speeding like crazy, and just as we start to come near the outskirts of Gallup, we get pulled over. Travis pulls his truck over with us. Naturally this makes the cop, a Navajo man himself, very on edge, and he immediately asks why Travis felt the need to pull over as well. Travis says we just saw a skinwalker a few miles back and it's been following us. The officer immediately turns white, stammers something about a verbal warning, gets in his car, and takes off. We do the same. We didn't see anything else that night, but when we got home, Travis refused to let us leave without taking some kind of Navajo totem thing that was supposed to keep it away. Anybody that has been on the Navajo reservation has either probably heard of some creepy things or have experienced pretty strange things. Namely skinwalkers. I have only seen one. Here is my story. I come from a small town in northern Arizona, that's sandwiched between the Paiute Reservation to the north, and the United States' largest Navajo reservation, to the south. My high school being so small, with an average of 80 students enrolled, every year. I always had to travel south, about 5 to 10 hours one way, to play another high school, in any sport. This means that we traveled a lot on the Navajo reservation. We also usually stayed at hotels when we would head out to play, and come home in the morning. This trip was a little bit different. I remember the basketball coach saying that the school didn't have enough money to put up the teams in a hotel that trip, so we were going to be on the road for a total of about 12 hours. I was the only male senior to play basketball that season. We had just got done playing our game and headed home on our bus. We were headed out, and it wasn't long, about 2 hours of driving, before we had entered the reservation. By this time, everyone was asleep, with it being about 2 in the morning. When we had crossed the resa's border, when I noticed the bus driver had sped up, and was now going about 85 miles per hour. I thought this was a little weird, because he never exceeded the speed limit. At least not in my high school career. For some reason, I couldn't fall asleep like the rest of my teammates, and I just sat at the back of the bus, staring out across the desolate desert landscape that was lit up by the full moon. As I looked out, I could see a figure running towards the bus, at an angle of pursuit. It was keeping up with the bus, at 85 miles per hour. As the figure got closer, I saw that it was in humanoid form. As a matter of fact, it looked exactly like a human, only that the face was painted half black and half white, with glowing eyes. Glowing eyes, like a rabbit's eyes reflecting light from a spotlight. I immediately thought, holy crap. It's a skinwalker. The skinwalker ran up to the edge of the road, and just kept up pace with the bus, hurdling sagebrush and rocks while staring at me. After I made eye contact with the thing, I could not look away. It was as if something was holding my head and eyes in place. The skinwalker just smiled at me, with this inhuman smile, that went ear to ear, showing crooked, yellow, pointed teeth. I felt like I was going to throw up, and I was panicking through the whole ordeal. The skinwalker started to crumple down onto all fours, still keeping up with the bus. I could see his bones crack and reform, hair started appearing all over the skinwalker's body, and in about 3 seconds, was now a coyote. It ran off back into the desert, out of view. As soon as it was gone, I ran to the onboard bathroom, and puked a mixture of food and blood. I didn't want to tell anyone, for fear they would think I was crazy. I confided in my Navajo friend. She told me that I needed to see the chief, who also happened to be a friend of mine, to get a blessing. I saw him the next school day in the parking lot. He just came up to me, and mumbled something in Navajo while waving a feathered scepter-like thing, turned around, got in his truck, and drove away. To this day, I haven't seen another skinwalker. It might be due to the fact that I moved away from that town. If I do have to go south, I go around that reservation. As many of you might already know, many Navajo people, including my own family, are very reluctant to speak about skinwalkers because it is believed to attract their attention. I, however, grew up away from the Navajo Nation and was very naive about the subject. When it came to skinwalkers, I was an absolute skeptic. My mom used to tell a story of how back in the 80s when she lived with her siblings and my grandparents, still in Shiprock, but the southern outskirts, about how she and my aunt saw a skinwalker just outside their driveway under a street light. She described it as a black dog, with dirty fur, a twisted noodle-like front leg, and these unnatural eyes, with a soft burnt orange glow. Me being my own closed-minded self, doubted every word, but I never said my doubts aloud. These doubts totally changed last year, when I went to my grandparents' house, last October. Me and my family had just finished scourging the carnival at the Navajo Nation Fair, and called it night. The house was close enough, where we could walk home in just 10 minutes, so we did. When we got there, it was about 9 at night. We stayed up until about 2, catching up about family affairs, and the local news. It was during that time, that I just decidedly opened my mouth, and blurted out the question. Are skinwalkers real? You shouldn't be speaking about that, my grandma said, with almost a disturbed yell in her voice. So she and my grandfather both decided to go to bed. After being scolded by my mom, one of my aunts chimes in with a very cautious tone and says, "They're real all right." I had a few start screaming outside of my trailer, in Farmington just a few nights ago. Your cousin had nightmares the whole night, and woke up crying that morning. Not wanting to push the discomfort any further, we all decided to go to bed. Now the trailer/home is pretty old, and it was a really nice night, so we slept with the windows open, with screens to prevent bugs from coming in. Everyone had drifted off to sleep except me, because my mind was still going a million miles a minute, about skinwalkers, and wondered if I would ever encounter one, while here on the reservation. That's when the shit totally hit the fan. Just as I was settling, and finally getting relaxed for sleep, I started to hear something moving outside. I got up from the couch, and start wandering over to the kitchen window. In the trailer, all of the rooms have the lights out, so the only visible light that can be seen, is from the porch light out front. I was thankful for this, because I told myself if it really was a skinwalker outside, then hopefully it wouldn't notice me seeing it. So I muster up the courage, and take a quick scan of outside. From the porch light, all I can see is the dusty ground, and the vehicles that my family drove, along with some old metal trash cans, that stood beside the road. Looking for about a good 5 seconds, I wasn't able to see anything, so I was getting ready to turn around and walk back to bed, thinking it was just a stray cat or something. Only have taken 2 steps, I hear what sound like a distorted scream, coming from outside, definitely close by. Fear rising, I look outside again, and there I see it. A coyote-like figure was staring at my direction from behind the cars, just outside of the reach of the porch light. Only it looked awfully wrong, and gave off an evil vibe just from seeing it. It was gray, with very disheveled hair, and a horrific orange-red soft glow that came from its eyes. I noped the hell out, and ran back to the bedroom. It was at this moment, I had begun to also notice an awful stench in the air, that smelled like rotting meat. I started trying to wake up my mom, who was like, "OMG, it's almost 3 a.m., what do you want?" I immediately began in a shaken voice, "There's something scary outside." Then she said, now annoyed because I woke her up, "Ugh, it's probably just a stray animal or something, it's the res, animals wander all the time at night." She obviously wasn't getting the drift of what I was saying, so I screamed that there was something evil outside. That got her attention. "What the hell are you talking about?" she said. Then we heard it, the thing outside started making more of its dreadful like screams, and started what sounded like thrashing outside, on the ground. Both her and I got back up, looked outside the window, and the coyote thing was making its way to the door. It walked with an odd limp, and dragged its back right leg as if it has handicapped. We could hear it start to scratch against the door, and make this odd muffled moaning sound. My mom went and got my dad, and they both started shouting in Navajo all sorts of words, telling the thing to go away, and saying it's not welcome here. Well, all this commotion was enough to get the rest of the trailer up, as they came out into the hallway. The only thing my mom did, was turn to them and said "Skinwalker," while proceeding to point to the door. Apparently, they already knew exactly what to do, as my grandfather got out a handgun from a drawer, and a bag of ashes. He coated a few bullets and loaded them into the gun, and went straight to the door. Yelling out more Navajo that was too fast for me to comprehend, he swung open the door and fired twice. Nothing. The thing managed to escape, before my grandpa could put a bullet in it. "That's the fastest one I've ever seen," said my grandpa. Next thing you know, my aunt and my parents are freaking out. My grandparents calmed everyone down, myself included, saying we'll be fine, and we all went to bed around 3 in the morning. Morning comes, and my grandparents call one of their neighbors, and explain to them what happened. Apparently, one of them was a medicine man, who used to partake in Ye by Che's, Navajo ceremonies used for healing and curing sickness. He came over to bless each family member, and the grounds outside. That was the last encounter with a skinwalker I have ever had. I hope that no one who is reading this will ever come face to face with something as terrifying as that.